Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics. In this video I'll be discussing the latest Brexit related leaks which show that the government are more than a little concerned about the impact of so many serious problems next year, including problems either created or made worse by the Conservatives, Brexit, COVID, flooding, that sort of thing. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So an official Cabinet Office briefing, which of course has gone to Cabinet Ministers, has been leaked to the media and describes the probability of what it terms systemic economic crisis next year. It's also expressed fears of the simultaneous mugging of the country of a bad winter flu, continuing out of control COVID, severe flooding, and of course the end of the Brexit transition period. A combination that would test even a good government, but one filled with airheads and led by someone whom even his close supporters admit is not really good with details or forward planning, is an absolute recipe for disaster. And what is particularly notable is that although the government will doubtless claim that it's the unfortunate combination of all these events that will cause such chaos, there's nothing unfortunate about it. It's all of the Tory chickens coming home to roost. Brexit, obvious. Brexit has been a Conservative policy from start to finish. They called for it, they lied for it, they then changed their promises to turn it into something wholly different to what they campaigned for. Then they lied about it again in order to implement an even harsher Brexit than was stipulated in their manifesto just a year ago. Will of the people, my arse. Clear majority against this sort of Brexit. Clear majority against any sort of Brexit, quite frankly. But an ever-increasing majority regret ever leaving the EU in the first place. Added on to that, even those who do still want to leave, leave, we have left, that's still in favour of Brexit even now. They don't want a form of Brexit that costs jobs, sacrifices their rights and has everyone pointing and laughing at them once they're finally allowed to go back to Spain for a holiday. COVID, okay, not a Conservative policy as such, but it is their policies that mean that we have performed the most poorly out of the advanced nations, taking both health and the economy into account. Nobody to touch us when it comes to the depth of our recession on that. Bad flu season? Well, that could happen regardless of the government, couldn't it? In one sense, the rate of transmission, sure, but what makes a winter flu season bad is not so much the rate of infection, which actually could be lower this year with our, social distancing enforced for COVID. That could actually help in terms of flu. But the extent to which the NHS struggles, that's what defines a bad winter. How well does the NHS cope? Now, a decade of NHS underfunding and privatisation has led, of course, to insufficient capacity to even meet normal winter demands, as ably demonstrated, for example, with the harrowing scenes last year, where we saw not so much just patients piled up on trolleys left in corridors, and that's quite bad. We actually saw patients just on the floor because, the beds had run out, but even the trolleys had run out. We couldn't even put them on a trolley in the corridor. And then we come to flooding. That's act of God, isn't it? No. Heavy rainfalls are, sure, but not flooding. The Netherlands, for example, should really be at much greater risk of flooding than the UK. But the Netherlands has, for generations now, managed the threat with sensible decisions. Our government ignored the recommendations and carried on building on floodplains, for example, which is why we suffer so much from heavy rainfall. The heavy rainfall is the natural act. The consequence of mismanagement is the flooding. That could be helped. The Cabinet Office also talks about industrial action, the threat of industrial action. Now, the threat of civil disobedience in general has been raised as far back as with Theresa May's Operation Yellowhammer, which we saw last year, over a year ago now, and another report that was, of course, characterised by its secrecy. We wouldn't have known anything about it unless it was leaked, and then the Parliament at the time forced the government to release it. And why do the government keep insisting on keeping these reports secret? There's no reason for them to keep it secret. The reason, of course, is because they don't want to cause panic, especially they don't want people asking the government, if you know this is going to happen, why are you that insane that you're going to inflict this on us? Why don't you do something to avert it? They'd much rather say that these Tory-fueled disasters were the sort that nobody could expect. And when everyone stands up to say, actually, I think you'll find there were people expecting this some time ago, they'll go, that's just Captain Hindsight again. Been warned about it for years. The report talks about food insecurity as well, and how it will particularly hit single parents, large families, those with disabilities, those on low incomes. And it also says that this combination of now probable pressures will put us as a country on our arse, making it difficult, therefore, to deal with the next national crisis. Because there's always challenges for a national government, any national government to meet. And when you only proceed to tackle these challenges reactively, purely reactively, in the laziest manner possible, with your only objective to deal with it just long enough to make it to bedtime. What do I need to do just to make this problem go away until 11 o'clock tonight? That's all Johnson's interested in, and then he worries about the hangover the next day. You end up inevitably running out of room for manoeuvre. And although this document has now been shared with the general media, nobody seems able to get a comment from the Cabinet Office about it. I mean, I've seen screenshots, that's all. I've not seen a link for a downloadable version for myself. When Yellowhammer was leaked, for example, I could get a copy of that. When the report was leaked a little while ago, I could get a copy of that. But this report goes further than Yellowhammer, apparently. So, I mean, I suppose that makes sense because we're now much closer to this scenario. So fewer things are a matter of speculation. And so, if you know things with more accuracy, you can be more certain in your predictions. But there are a few lines in the reports to particularly ponder. Quote, councils at high risk of financial failure, which means, of course, the critical collapse of public services. Now, no doubt the government will blame Labour councils whilst bailing out the Tory ones. We've seen this with COVID. They will do this next year as well. But the bottom line is suffering on a grand scale as a result of this. Next one. Critical supply chains will come under pressure, particularly medical ones. There's that shortage of vital medicines being explained to ministers here. And what are ministers doing about this? Nothing. Border disruption could lead to disruption in supply of critical chemicals for food, water and medicine. So basically the essentials for life that we do produce ourselves, we know we import a great deal from the EU, but some of them we produce ourselves. But what people need to remember, for some of the things that we produce ourselves, we are still dependent upon imports of some products in their processing, in their manufacture. Otherwise we can't produce them for ourselves. I've talked in the past about chemicals needed for water treatment, for example. Next one, a mutual reduction in ability to combat crime and terrorism. So the so-called party of law and order, once again helping the criminals by weakening our capacity to maintain law and order. The reports rag rate risk areas as well. It labels, for example, public disorder and law enforcement as red, predicting protests around the UK. That's what the report's doing. And as a result of that, concern, not just, large-scale civil disobedience would be worrying enough for any government. But then there's also the worries about the subsequent increase in COVID transmission as well, should this occur. And for those who think, but next year we'll have the vaccines, like I said, don't pay any attention to the Daily Express. According to them, we're getting the vaccine rolled out in the next few days. No, we're not. Hopefully it will be early next year when it starts. Remember, these vaccines need a good couple of months to take effect anyway, and it takes time to inoculate a decent proportion of the population. This report, which again, I haven't seen in all its glory, just snippets, but I did see Operation Yellowhammer. Now, in Operation Yellowhammer, it talked about this serious civil disorder, not occurring over time. It's like, in half a year we'll be in a right mess. No, like in a matter of weeks. So even if, let's say we get past the second COVID wave, and let's say we have a good rollout of the vaccine before a third wave, which is a massive leap of faith when you consider this government's record so far. But let's say that still won't come in time to avert this particular issue. And remember, the vaccine does nothing to halt a COVID wave. It just prevents another one, a future one. It's not a treatment, it's a preventative. And on reading about this report, I was in two minds about what I thought, really, because what it shows very clearly is that government ministers understand in clear detail what their policies are going to do to this country in a few weeks' time. They know that. They've received this briefing. It's even been colour-coded for them. Can't say fairer than that. Now, in one sense, that's good, because I was in genuine fear that all of this would come as a surprise to the government. Sure, you can look at it from one point of view and go, political boon for their political opponents, because it would result from their point of view in the scales falling off more people's eyes more quickly, blind panic from ministers, and the chaos, of course, would only get worse. There'd be no way to dig themselves out of it. If ministers understand the danger, however, that there is a chance that they will listen to some advice. Now, I suppose we could use as a template the way Boris Johnson, for example, responded to COVID, for the good and the bad in this. So when the emergency really started in this country, Boris Johnson tried to go ahead with Dominic Cummings' absolutely barking scheme to achieve herd immunity without a vaccine by just getting on as normal. Oh, just go out, hug and kiss and spit down each other's necks. It's all fine. Let's take it on the chin, he said. We're just going to carry on as normal and it will sort itself out. Then Boris Johnson was shown a report going, okay, that's interesting, Prime Minister, that you've just done that without actually thinking it through. But here's how many people are going to die if you do this. At which point he went, and then he changed tack. Now, he still didn't follow all the advice. He wasn't suitably humbled and gone, actually, yeah, I shouldn't have listened to Dominic Cummings. Should listen to the scientists. Let's listen to the scientists from now on. He didn't do that. But he followed some advice. He reined back on the total insanity of the original plan. The same may be true here. It may be, for example, that as a result of this panic, he will arrange a deal with the EU. We still don't know. That will, of course, lessen that disruption. It won't remove it. It will lessen it. I don't think they'll ever feel so panicked that they will just go, do you know what, we need expert advice now, we'll just follow it. We'll just follow your recommendations because we don't know what to do here. I don't think that will ever happen. They're too arrogant. Far too arrogant. But if they are aware of the incoming damage, there is a chance they can at least do something to mitigate. But it also represents a government who know just how damaging this combination of events is going to be, and blinded by ideology or greed, are pressing ahead with it regardless. They're still using COVID as an opportunity to raid the country's finances. They're still pushing ahead with an exit from the EU's customs union that, with or without a deal, adds massively to that chaos. There's not a lot they can do about, winter NHS pressures because they refused to invest. Not a lot they can do about the flooding if that strikes, because that's as a result of long-term neglect and mismanagement. You can't turn it around overnight. They still won't do what they can to at least alleviate the problems. They won't do that. Remember, start of this year when we had the severe flooding, Boris Johnson couldn't even be asked to organise emergency meetings to coordinate it. But there we are. At least the government knows what's coming, even if they want to try and keep it from the rest of us. And they know what's going to happen in a few more weeks. There is a possibility they will therefore do something to act. The problem is that what we're up against here with this government is not just malice, but incompetence. So even if they try and act and they try and do just enough to manage the situation, that just enough may not be quite just enough. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.